Welcome to Monday Night Live, the weekly training that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth.
So tonight, what I'm going to do is go over the process of how you identify and analyze flip properties. Okay, and it's the way I think things are going to be going. I mean, you never. It's just I've have learned a long time ago. Never predict what's going to happen, especially with the economy, because you just don't know. All kinds of things could happen, and for good or for bad. But there's always stuff that pops up out of the left field that you're not even planning on or even thinking about, and it just sidetracks everything. But aside from and all the stuff that's going on with tariffs, if you look at where we where we come from, say 5 years ago, right? We were still in a really good, solid bull market coming out of that last recession. Um, the uptick started around 2011, 2012, most parts of the country. By 2015, most people were back in business. There was still inventory, believe it or not, from the recession at that point. But by 2020, we were cruising right along. Then all of a sudden, bam! The pandemic hit, and everybody thought we're gonna crash. Everybody's just gonna stay put, hunker down, and boy, the exact opposite happened. I mean, real estate prices just went through the roof. People are outbidding each other, waiving contingencies, inspections, appraisals, all kinds of stuff. And then you follow that with interest rates. What normally happens when you have a massive bubble building like that and prices go up through the roof and then interest rates go up? What normally happens in most commodities? What's your? I know it's everybody's thinking. I don't know what to say because it's doing everything different than we thought. Well, normally you have a recession, you have a correction. 2 quarters is a correction of negative GDP, and we actually had that. It was just very mild, and nobody seemed to care, and the government kept printing money. So there was, people just kept going right along, deficits increasing, and now here we are. A couple of years later. It's hard to believe it's 2025, but um, I will tell you statistically, there are more people um, who are getting behind on mortgages. I'm seeing it more and more when we look at the data. Um, we already know property taxes that there's a lot of people behind there. Interestingly enough, so I think it's time to really look at flipping again. At least for the time being. I mean, if we go down um, in a recession, I actually don't think it's going to be that long or that bad. But again, hey, don't. I know this is being recorded, but no guarantees on anything I predict. Um, and there's another wild card out there, which is we still have a shortage of housing, and we still have markets in the country where people are outbidding each other. There's multiple offers. Who here is in a market where you still have multiple offers? Yeah, look at that. It's amazing. Um, so when you have a shortage of housing, it's usually easier to flip because there's people just are so excited that this house came on the market that's been totally remodeled. So let's go ahead and consider this beginning of class. I should have given to you more of a head start here, but um, in any case, when you have a market like this, um, shortage of housing, it's easier to flip. And what's interesting is we can relax our requirements a little bit. So in other words, normally we spend a lot more time determining what neighborhoods to flip in. And I'm going to go into that a little bit tonight. Okay. But when you have a shortage of housing and a really nice house comes on the market, it's been totally remodeled, and it might not be the A plus neighborhood or even a B plus neighborhood, could be a B minus or C plus. It's okay. People will still buy it. I mean, if you've ever seen a neighborhood turn, right, or even a town completely just rejuvenate itself, it's called gentrification. It's amazing to watch it happen. It's a lot of fun. To me, it's like watching art unfold right in front of you. So I think we're in one of those times right now. I'm looking at neighborhoods. Well, I'm not the neighborhood I'm right now. I'm on Lemon Bay in Florida, and on either side of me, one house on the right is completely gone, and the one on the left is in shambles from the last hurricane last fall, Milton. And I think it was whichever one was the last one that blew through north of Fort Myers and south of Sarasota. This was ground zero. It was so bad when I was watching the hurricane on the news. You know, he always see like the eye. Well, if you remember watching a hurricane when it hit ground here, there were some real splotchy stuff that were blanks. There were blank, empty spots in the circular pattern that wasn't in the middle. And I thought, I don't think that's a good thing. Why are these big blank splotches in the middle of this hurricane graphic on the TV when I could clearly see the hurricane clearly defined? It's because it was so bad, the sensors were being wiped out. The hurricane sensors, they had these things that detect wind and water height and wave values. They were getting wiped out. That's why it was blank like that. Well, that's where this was. Okay. So, in any case, back to normal environments. You'll see towns, particularly inner cities, going through gentrification. It generally goes out in centrifugal bands. Those are really good places to invest in. Buy properties. There's usually more inventory. You can get really good deals. Sometimes the city will own some of them, or even the county, because of unpaid taxes. And of course, there's going to be a couple more foreclosures. Plus, it's just there's more people, so you're going to have more of those opportunities, which means you got a greater opportunity to sell. So far, I know as crazy as it sounds, am I doing a good enough job painting a picture, like in general terms? Generally speaking, you're more selective, but when you have a shortage of housing and inventory, demand is outpacing supply, that you can relax your requirements a little bit. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. All right. Now, the first thing we have to determine is where are we going to actually invest? All right. And let me do something. I'm going to go into the website. I'm going to go to the team website. So for all the guests here, first of all, thank you for coming to join us for class. We always appreciate that. Um, where is okay? Let me go to this browser. We appreciate you being in class. Anything I show you that's on the team website and you're not on the team, don't worry. Um, I just email me and I'll make sure you get the material that we cover in class. Okay. So let's go to the team website. Where the heck is it? Usually I'm not. Oh, here it is. Real estate with Gary Wilson. Okay. It's going to give me a second to get logged in, please. So we go to member login. And I'm going to go to the flipping training program to show you where you can actually find this material. Okay, that's under training courses. Oops, hang on. I'm always getting this same little office, Microsoft Office pop-up. So in the training programs, you'll see that the second one is on flipping, right behind investor agent. Investor agent is what everybody takes on the team. Anything else is elective. If you're on a team course, you don't pay for it. So let's go into the flipping program. All right. Okay, come on here. There's 10 modules. Well, there's an introduction and there's 8 modules, excuse me. Um, I'm going to kind of blow through some of this. By the way, for each module, you get audio, video, as well as the printed version. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to take some shortcuts here just so we can get through everything I want to get through tonight. Let's skip through that one. Now, if you want to take this and you're on a team, all you do is you email Sugar and ask her to unlock flipping for you. And she'll do that. Okay. So in any case, let's go down here into the PDF on this one. Trust LLCs. This is just talking about the business entity you want to use. I suggest to keep things simple, just use an LLC to flip properties. Okay. You can use a trust, but really on flipping an LLC is plenty good enough. Talks about where you get the cash. Okay. There are some really great private lending opportunities out there in the world today. Um, we have a guest teacher coming up in May. Her name's Erica McNew, and I taught her in 2015. And she's part of a group. I think the American Private Lending, American Private Funders, and they actually have a PAC. They go and they speak in front of Congress in Washington D.C. to represent the world of private funding. Remember, private funding doesn't always mean hard money. Okay, um, it just means it's private money. Hang on one second. Let me get back into here. Um, but private, if you don't have cash to actually purchase a property, whoops, I thought it was already in there. Hang on one second. Oh, here it is. Sorry about that. Maybe just got to go backwards. I'm going to get to the next module. But in any case, the, most flippers like to use cash to buy the property, do the remodeling, and then sell and get their money back plus profit. If you have to borrow, you're going to generally have to borrow private money because most conventional lenders will not lend money on a flip. The only way you get money on a house you're remodeling is if you live there and get like a 203K or something like that. Okay. All right. So here's module 4. This is the one I wanted to actually show you. All right. I'm just off my one module. So then here's the actual steps you follow to find flip properties. Module 4. Where's my checklist? Thought of module 4. The walkthrough, review, MAO formula. Okay. Well, we have to go over this anyways. This is the maximum allowable offer formula. So let's go ahead and do this, and I'll show you the checklist in a second. Um, Flipping is a very simple formula. It's not at all complicated. The secret to success in flipping is knowing the market. You or your realtor, somebody needs to know the market, and also know how to identify the properties. Okay, we're going to go over that tonight, like I said. So if you look at what's called the MAO formula, it's maximum allowable offer. All right. So if you want to write that down, if you're not, especially if you're not on the team, just write down MAO means maximum allowable offer. That's the most you can offer for a property that you're looking to flip and still be able to make profit and do all the repairs and everything. Okay. Now, what the maximum allowable offer is based on is what we call after repair value. So if you look at a property and you know that it needs, new kitchen, new bathroom, new roof, what have you, you're going to need to figure out what that property would sell for after all the work is done. And you can generally tell that by doing a market analysis, just like you would do it for any buyer, any potential buyer who's looking to buy a home that's in good shape and doesn't need any work. The after repair value is synonymous with that, what we call a fair market value. It's the value of a fully marketable property. It means it's moving in condition. It doesn't need a lot of new stuff. It might need some cosmetics, but nothing major. Okay. That's after repair value. That's what an appraiser would appraise it at after all the remodeling's done, when it's under contract to resell for flipping for profit. Okay. So after repair value, that value, guys, is the most important number in this whole business, in the business of flipping. You have to have that number right. You or your real estate agent have to have that number right. You can't be wrong. If you guess too high, then you might actually pay too much for the property. If you guess too low, then you might not be competitive on your offers for the property. Okay, because you're going to be offering too low and everybody else is going to offer more money. So that number, that has to be rock solid. And it's not that hard to determine because you have data through the MLS. If you're on a team or if you're in Silver Plus, you've got the Real eFlow program. Real eFlow gives you retail value, wholesale value, and rental value. Okay. So here's what we do. We take the after repair value, and I'll take something low like in the example here, $200,000. Everybody write on your paper, $200,000. Okay. That's what you're going to sell the property for. So write $200,000 down. All right. Now, the next thing you're going to do is automatically deduct 30%. Okay. Automatically deduct 30% from the ad for repair value. Now, real quick, who do we have any math whizzes here? What's 30% off of 200,000?
60.
60, exactly. So the most you can pay for this property, including remodeling, is 140,000. Okay. So that's your MAO, assuming there's no repair work. But clearly there's going to be some repair work, because otherwise why would you buy the house? It's not going to be priced low enough for you to be able to buy it. Most flips, um, you're getting them at a discount because clearly they need a lot of work. All right. So let's say you do your analysis and it turns out the house needs, $30,000 in remodeling. Then you deduct the 30,000 from the 140. Remember, 200,000 less 30% is 140,000. 140,000 less the remodeling, in this case, is going to be 110,000. 140 minus 30 for remodeling is 110. Now, in a softer market, you don't want to offer 110. You want to offer maybe less than 100, because you want to give yourself negotiating room and some cushion, right? So, what do we do? We're in a market that's like a market like today, where people are outbidding each other and stuff like that. Well, sometimes you got to squeeze your profit a little bit. You might have to start off offering 110. And if you can offer cash, that's what I would do. If you get cash, always offer cash on these properties, because we're not the only smart people on the planet. Other people are likely going to see these opportunities. Um, so in any case, that leaves you with 110 in this example, and that happens to be your actual MAO. ARV, less 30%, less the repairs, gives you your maximum allowable offer. Okay. Um, by the way, the 30% represents 20%, or two-thirds of the 30 is your profit. The other 10% is carrying cost. Okay. You're going to have, you know, potentially transfer taxes, commissions, things like that. Okay. So that's how you get the MAO. Now I'm going to see the other thing I had one. Let's see if this is the module 3. Nope. All right, let me go back. Does anybody have any questions or on ARV, after repair value, and um, maximum allowable offer? Any questions on that? And that was module 4. This is said module 4. Let me double check this to make sure the modules aren't mixed up. Um, Because I want to show you the checklist. If you do have questions, guys, please put them in the chat box. And that was module 4. Let's go back.
I
And
just
I
want to
thought we
say
looked.
that this gets really difficult when you're in an area that you don't have a lot of comps to pull from,
Yeah,
or the property's unique.
yeah. Unique properties can be a challenge. That's for sure. Um, or if you're in a rural area, a very rural area, I mean, it's very difficult. Okay, hang on, let me go back and let me see module 5. We just chopped these up a couple of years ago. So let's go down here to all right. Here's a property inspection report. So let's talk about that. I'm going to kind of go backwards here tonight. The property inspection report is the property inspection is the first thing you do on a flip property, assuming you've identified a potential flip property. This is not a inspector you're paying $500 to come in and do a home inspection. That's not what this is. This is you walking through either by yourself or with a contractor who knows their stuff, to determine all the things that need to be addressed on this property. You always start with the outside, okay? And then when you go on and outside, everything, it doesn't matter, fences, sheds, pools, you name it, landscaping. Um, then when you look at the building itself, you're starting on the outside there too. You're looking at the roof, the chimney, the foundation, exteriors, all right? And then and only then do you move inside. What we're doing is we're starting with the biggest and or most expensive things first, okay? Then you go into the interior. Of course, all these things are expensive, HVAC, right? And then you've got your kitchens that can be pretty expensive, especially when you throw in appliances these days on top of cabinetry. All right. Then you've got your electrical and plumbing, then all your windows, right? And so forth. So, in any case, uh, you can always grab this from the training program, but also if you go to the tools tab on the team website where it says TOOLS tools, that form is in there as well. Okay. So you can get it from there. And hint, hint, if you're not on the team, but you're in Silver Plus, that's where you get that form. All right. I'm not going to read all this stuff because you guys can read it on your own. Um, but I want to point this out. The inspection report is just like it says. The inspection report is just to identify what has to be done. It doesn't get into pricing and scheduling and analyzing and prioritizing and all that. That's what their rehab analysis form does. Okay. Rehab analysis form gets into all these details. So you want to put in all the information up here that has like contact information for the agents if there's brokers involved, owner's information if you have that. Okay. Um, there could be other costs associated depending on where you are and how big the scope of your project is. You may have to pay an architect. You may have to pay legal fees, like for some type of occupancy inspection, maybe some type of a zoning. You're changing something on the zoning. Insurance. If you're borrowing money, you have loan fees, permit fees, all kinds of stuff, right? The more populated an area, the more likely you're going to have more of these costs. Like permitting, for example. There's still a few places around the country, believe it or not, where if you own the building that you're remodeling, if it's far out rural enough, they really don't. You can do whatever you want to your property. As long as you're not building a missile silo, you can do what you want to your property. Um, so in any case, but now more and more of the OSHA rules are kicking in, and there was a big push 20 years ago to make the federal rules applicable to all counties, and most counties have complied with them. In any case, then you get into more details on the interior, like kitchens. You've actually put cost in here. Okay, the bedrooms, other rooms like den, family room. If you have an elevator, air conditioning, heating, electrical, this is where you put all those costs in. Okay, the exterior, you can see there's all kinds of stuff there. Um, then you have to look at what you've got invested capital wise. At some time, if you're borrowing money, it costs money to borrow money. You've got closing costs. What if there's back taxes? Somebody's got to pay those. All right. Um, then you add all that up and you get yourself your gross profit. So a little bit more of a detailed way of looking at estimating a flip. Okay. And again, you can get this from the website or the training programs. Either way is going to work. Okay. I just want to look. I'm not purposely not showing you this. I just want to see if there's anything that I'm missing that I'll believe that you'll want. Um, let's see what number 6 is real quick. Module 6. Oh, making offers. Okay, we're not going to get into all that. Let me just look at module 2 here real quick. Make sure I didn't miss anything there. Module 2 PDF. By the way, if either of you have an example of a flip that you're working on or one of your clients is looking at, please feel free to share and we can actually analyze that right here in class as long as you have certain information. In any case, this is module 2. This gives you some other resources to look for potential properties to buy and flip, like HUDHomestore.com or HUDHomestore.com, excuse me. Everybody should be on that, by the way. If you're not on the HUDHomestore.com, you need what's called your NAID. Every broker of record has it. Okay, your brokerage, whatever brokerage you're with, your managing broker or your designated broker for your office or your region or your state should have an NAID. You have to be a broker to get it. It's the number, the identification that gives you the right to show HUD properties and sell HUD properties. Not necessarily list them. Remember, HUD listings are owned by you and I, the taxpayer. They're government-owned properties. They're owned by us. So because of that, HUD properties specifically are non-exclusive listings. What that means is Lisa could get the listing from HUD to sell the property. Okay, she's guaranteed to get a listing commission. But anybody can advertise and promote those HUD properties. And it's the one time you can do that where you don't need the other agent's permission. You should notify them, let them know, hey, you're pretty good with HUD properties, and I'm going to sell your HUD property for you. How'd you like that? And most agents, of course, would be great, sell my property. Although some of them are not maybe thinking clearly and will say something like, you can't do that. Well, with HUD, you actually can do it. Okay. HUD listings are non-exclusive. Then you got home steps. Okay. That's Freddie Mac, home steps. And you got VA, VRMCO. Okay. Then home path. All right. Home path is the last one. That's your FHA. So, right now, here's the step that we're going to go through. And I'm going to show you something else on ReallyFlow, and we should have time to do that. Hi, I just want to take a moment to thank you for watching a recording of the Monday Night Live class. Hope you're getting a lot out of it. I'm sure you will. I wanted to let you know that, you can come to Monday Night Live whenever you want, but you can also participate more with the team. Why don't you set up a call with me, a one-on-one strategy call? I can go over everything with you, show you everything that we have to offer. For example, did you know that on our team, not only do you get your leads, we actually give you your own account on our lead gen system. So this puts you in control. You're not waiting on somebody to hand you leads. You get to pick the ones you want. Okay. Huge difference. We have 21 of our own proprietary marketing campaigns. They're all copyright protected. We're the only ones that can use them. Okay. The coaching is absolutely one-on-one. We got 3 coaches. We even have a 4th success coach that we have access to. Okay. One of left fewer than 100 in the world. Okay. One-on-one coaching. Right now the big problem is volume. We need more transactions. We need more inventory. I get it. Well, we know how to get it. Our team actually outproduces the national average by more than 2 to 1. So if you're struggling, don't do that anymore. If you're a solo agent, if you're a team, let's just talk. Smart entrepreneurs are always open to discussion. Learn what we have to offer, and then you can make an informed decision about staying where you are or moving on. You got to decide, if you're not where you want to be, you've got to take action to get where you want to be. Let's see how we can help you do that. I look forward to talking to you. Click on the link, set up a call. And by the way, I'll see you on the next Monday Night Live. Whether you're flipping yourself or you're working with a flipper, you definitely want to have these steps. They're applicable to both parties. Okay. I do suggest you make use of your MLS because there's a lot of properties there. It's centralized database and you can go in there. It's easily searchable. And if you have something already on the MLS, it just makes it easier. If you're going to approach owners directly for properties that are not listed, remember, you've now got that front end piece of work to accomplish. You've got to actually earn the right to sell that property. With properties on the MLS, that whole part of your business is already done. You're just selling a property that's already on the MLS, whether it's yours or some other agent's listing. Okay. So remember that. If you're going to source the inventory for your flippers, and if you're on a team, you would use ReallyFlow to do that. You've got another layer of work ahead of you, and it could be a substantial layer of work, right? It does allow you to build relationships with people. Just because they're not ready to sell today doesn't mean they won't sell tomorrow. So there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I encourage my agents to learn how to do that. So they can be completely, totally autonomous no matter what happens to them or the economy or wherever they go, or they build their own brokerage or team or whatever. When you know how to lead source, when you know how to convince people to sell their house, you will never, well, I shouldn't say this. You will be in control of your own destiny. Let me put it that way. You will know how to make money, right? That's different than only using the MLS. Those are people that only use the MLS are transactional agents. You need to be the person that's bringing the properties to the MLS, right? So this is assuming cutting out the first part. I'm going to show you that first part in a minute. Go back to this. Um, this is what I used to do with my clients. This is exactly how I worked with them. Okay. First, I'd interview them, make sure I want to work with them, make sure they want to work with me, make sure they have money or credit. Okay. Because there's nothing worse than taking people out only to find out they can't get credit and they don't have money. So I make sure that they're qualified. And believe it or not, there was a period of time where I had a requirement that if they worked with me, they had to demonstrate they had at least $100,000 in cash somewhere in savings, CDs, whatever, 100,000 in cash. Because at the time, the market was extremely competitive. And I was not going to spend my time with somebody that couldn't, you know, win the horse race. So I'm not saying that's where we are now. I'm just saying that's what I did. Not in the beginning, but after several years, I was doing that. So make sure the people you work with are going to be able to you know, win that race. So in any case, then what I do is I make sure I have all the contact information, which I should at this point, right? I have them sign a buyer's agency agreement. And guys, what I'm going to tell you next is probably one of the most important things I could ever tell you. When you work with a flipper, you're going to earn a commission when they first buy the property to remodel. That's probably going to be the lower of your commissions you're going to earn with this person. But what other commission can you earn? It should be very easy to garnish if you do things right. What commission would that be?
The
After
listing.
that, absolutely. They get the listing. So how do you ensure you get the listing? And this is really important because I know people today personally that I've trained that still do not do this. And one of them just found out, now she's not on the team, 2 days ago on Sunday, one of her better investors had given a house he was selling on a flip to an agent that his wife knew. And the agent that I knew was upset by that. And I said, well, how did you let that happen? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, don't you use the buyer agency agreement? And in the case of a flip, you write in there, you can add it as an addendum or hand it right in other, um, uh, what's other information, whatever you want to call it, additional information. Other conditions, I'm sorry, other conditions that you, as the investor agent who's helping that client find a property to flip, reserve the right, exclusive right to sell that property when they put it back on the market. And you want to make sure you do that because if you don't, and you're not really properly maintaining the relationship or branding yourself, they might think that you can only help them find the property to flip. They might not think of you as the agent that's going to flip it, sell it when it's going out back on the market. But here's the irony: you and I both know which house is easier to sell, a crappy house that needs a lot of work or a house that just got remodeled. Which house is easier to
Remodeled.
sell? It's
The
a
remodel.
remodeled house, slam dunk, every single day of the week. Kathy's perfect example. 2 weeks ago, she put a house on the market, properly positioned it with the price and coming soon using all that the technique there. And the weekend it went live, she got it under contract. Was it 3 offers, Kathy? I can't remember. Something like that.
Um, they ended up with just 2
2 offers. Yeah.
because
Well, there you go.
yeah, there
Yep.
were others that were interested, but since the offers were there,
Yep.
they didn't put it in at the last minute.
Yep. So I told this agent to tell her client she needs to go see him and call him up and say, look, any agent, I don't even care if they're brand new, any agent can sell a house that's been totally remodeled and priced right. It's just dumping a gold brick in their lap. It takes a specialized set of skills for me to find you that property to begin with so you can actually remodel it and make a profit, right? Those listings should be coming to me. I'm far more qualified because not only I know how to anybody could sell that property, including me, I'm the one that helps you find these properties. If you want to keep working with me and find more of these properties, I need to get those listings on the back end. Now, you don't want to say it like I just said it because that's going to sound kind of cocky, but you know what I'm saying. You need to put your foot down and do it up front. Don't ever wait. When you wait, all you can do is get upset by it. Okay. So put your foot down first. Make sure you get that in writing. Remember, in real estate is the only form of contract law that's required to be in writing to be enforced in the courts. The only one. If you don't put it in writing, the old saying is in real estate, if it's not in writing, it's not real. You know, so not
Hey,
writing, it's not.
Gary,
Yep.
we do want to say it like you just said it. That's a come to Jesus conversation. I've had a few of those with clients. They work because people know you mean business.
Well, that's true, Banetta. I appreciate you saying that, Banetta, because actually, I will tell you guys, sometimes you have to do that. You've got to speak boldly and with confidence, right?
Exactly.
Do not leave any wiggle room. Don't say please, maybe you consider me next time. No, 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 no. This is your business, right? Your business is a reflection of you. Be bold, be strong, and I promise you, there's probably people on the call tonight that will tell you that's exactly right. The veteran agents will tell you, don't be afraid to put your foot down because remember, you've got a special set of skills that most agents do not have, right? Plus, if you're on a team, you've got really flow. Good Lord, what a huge advantage, distinct advantage over 99.9% of all the other agents. Hey, Dave, I'm sorry. I know you've got your hand up there. If you want to unmute yourself, go ahead and chime in. Dave Blankenship.
You have to unmute yourself,
You're
Dave.
muted. You're muted, Dave.
Sorry about that. No, it wasn't me.
Okay.
I just had my hand up on my chin.
Oh,
It
okay.
wasn't very-
That was an amen hands up. So,
Well, Jackie's got her hand up.
yep. Hey, Jackie, go ahead.
Hi, Gary. What you just said, is that something that you should talk to your client, I guess, the flipper, from the beginning before you start looking for properties for him or her?
Absolutely. I make it a requirement. Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't even fool around. I just tell them, look, this is part of the business because of the skills I'm giving you, and I'm making myself available with no extra cost. The only thing I require in return is I get that listing on the back end, because
You
I
make them
know
sign that agreement?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Got it.
Now, I will
Thank
tell you in the beginning, my broker was on riding me because I wasn't doing that because I didn't feel like I didn't feel confident enough, or I didn't feel like I earned it, and I thought I would earn it out on the street. And he finally I got burned by it. I actually had that happen. Somebody, took a house and remodeled, and it was pretty juicy profit. And I went with someone else because he said, well, that other person works that neighborhood. And I came back, talked to my broker. And he's first off, he, pretty much spanked me pretty good. And he said, you need to go back to him and tell him if he wants to continue working with you, this is the condition. And I did. And Joe, you all met him. Joe Chawansky was the client, and I had him teach for us about 3 years ago. And every property after that, I got every single one. So I'm sorry, Jackie. Did you have more also?
No, that's it. Thank you. Got
You're
it.
very
I'm sorry.
welcome.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, all right. Now, here's what I do, guys.
Hey, Gary,
Yes.
this paper, these steps that you have here, where can we find those?
This is in the chapter 2 or module 2 of the flipping training program.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thanks.
And anyone who's a guest here tonight, guys, this is not going to be on the team website. So if you could email me, I'll make sure you get this checklist. Okay. I mean, anytime I teach a class, if there's a guest on, I make sure you get whatever we cover in class. You're not getting the whole training program or anything like that, but you will definitely get this. So let me give you my email here real quick, just in case. To everyone, Gary at rewgw.com. Now, if you're invited here because of one of the agents on the team, or you saw it on one of the agents' Facebook page, please reach out to that agent. They have the same exact access that I do. And I think it'd be really nice if they knew you came to class using their link. So that would be great. But if not, feel free to contact me, and I'll make sure you get this checklist. Okay. All right. Now, I know I said earlier one of the most important things I was going to tell you is what I just told you. Well, here's probably the second most important thing is the process of elimination. All right. So this is where I actually get my investors to go to work for me. Okay. Now just hear me out here. Um, when I'm working with investors, I make it a point to tell them they're going to learn about more about investing while they're working with me. And any one of you can say the same thing because you have all this material. Whether they flipped one house or flip 10 or only do rentals, whatever the case is, any good investor will always tell you there's always more to learn. The more I learn how much more there is to learn, you know? So, and again, you're saying it, with confidence, but also humility that they're going to learn from you because you can share with them all of our calculators and forms. Remember, you can share with your clients if there's no cost to them or you. And all those calculators and all those spreadsheets were given to you in original format so that you can put your name and your email and your phone number on them, right? Does that sound like a good thing to send out to your database sometimes and say, hey, look, here's a calculator to figure out if a flip is a good flip. And at the bottom is your name, email, and phone number, in fact, I'd keep a set of those printed and keep with you in your car somewhere. But here's what I do. I always do a check. I get their criteria. Like we know the area we're going to flip in. We know that the most common property in that area is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch or a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom colonial. I promise I'm going to show you that tonight, how you determine what that is, what the what is. But whatever that what is, I'm going to go into the MLS and I'm only going to search for 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom colonials, right? In particular areas. I use the area field. I never use the zip code on an MLS search. I use the MLS area field because the area field is a much smaller set of data typically than a zip code. And an area field normally is like the northeast part of town or the southwest part of town or central in the city or whatever that is. It could be sometimes it's an actual neighborhood. I've seen area fields in the northeast that's actually the town itself. The whole town is one area field. So in any case, I search only for those areas that we've already pre-identified and only search for properties that we determine are the ones selling the most. Essentially, the secret is when you're working with flippers, and if they don't know this stuff, you need to tell them it's definitely in their best interest to only flip homes, the kind of homes that are selling the most. What homes are going on the market and selling the fastest? Those are the homes you want to flip. Why mess with anything else? I'm not saying you can't be successful, but why not go with the data? Does it make sense, guys?
Yeah.
If the data tells you 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom colonial, just do that. Don't mess around with anything else. So I find all those properties, right? And I send the search to them, and I set up a call with them. Okay. Now this is you doing a Zoom call with them, right? And you can get Zoom for free for 40 minutes. 40 minutes should be enough to do these. But what we do is I have them going through the properties online with me. This is in the beginning when I first worked with them. Okay. And let's say I sent them, I don't know how many, maybe 50 properties, something like that. 60 properties, could be 100, who knows? I'm going to send them all those properties. Now, I've already told them ahead of time how to actually narrow things down, right? So one of the things that we do to narrow things down is to look at the list price versus the market value for that type of house in that area. So if I know all the 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom colonials are selling for $400,000 in that area, I'm certainly not going to look at properties with the client that are asking for $400,000. There's no room in there for that 30% profit, let alone remodeling. So I'm only looking for properties that are listed at below the fair market value or the market value for that area. So let's do a quick pulse check here. Everybody okay with that? Any questions? That is really, really important. And sometimes you got to hear this 3 or 4 times before it makes sense. Yep. Val, do you have a question, or is that more just a high
I have a
five?
question. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Yep.
What did you just say that they're listed below?
Yeah, the asking price, the list price on the MLS is
Uh-huh.
below the market value for that type of house in that neighborhood.
Got it.
So,
Thank you.
exactly. Yeah, great question. Um, and by the way, there are properties that are so bad off, I'll try to convince my client to not do it. I'll just tell you why. Okay, here's my rule of thumb. If we go through the property and it turns out there's more than 3 major components that need to be totally redone, like it needs a brand new kitchen, it needs a foundation repair, it needs a brand new roof. Those are major, major repair jobs. And the more major repair jobs you have in a project, the greater the risk of running over budget, taking too much time, taking forever to get the thing done. Surprises. You open up a wall to fix a wire or a pipe, and then it's chaos in there. So that's my rule of thumb. I'll go up to 3, but after 3, if we get like brand new kitchen, new roof, and a foundation fix, but also all the exterior windows are shot or the exterior siding is shot, I'm just going to tell them, say, look, guys, we're gonna find another property that has more cosmetic work and less major capital improvements. Everybody with me so far?
Yes.
Okay, really important. I mean, this is absolutely a game of patience and persistence and sticking to the rules. When you start breaking the rules and bending the rules, somebody's going to make a mistake, So in any case, what we're trying to do is narrow that down to say half, like 30 properties. We're trying to get it from 60 to 30. Okay. Now, once we've done that, we're going to go through the properties again, right? And this time we're going to spend more time looking at the pictures, the sizes of the bedrooms, the yard. Is the yard on like a 45-degree angle versus flat? Flat's better, right? Or is it real tiny, teeny tiny little, you know, postage stamp size lot? We're looking at all those things, and this is all very, subjective, right? But you're trying to arrive at a list of properties that you're going to want to go see with them, where you're now using your time and energy away from your home. And that's the most expensive use of your time and energy, because every time you get in that car and you're going to go look at 6 properties, you're going to spend at least a half a day looking at properties, not to mention travel time to and from. That's a big investment of your time. You need to be, to make sure you're looking at the best of the best. So we narrow this down, cut it in half again, try to get to say 10 or 15 properties. Okay. Now, what I generally do at this point is I'll take their final list, and I'm going to narrow it down further. I know this sounds like a lot of work, but I swear to you, it's going to pay off. I do not want to look at 15 properties when it turns out, using my better judgment, I can narrow it down to 5 or 6 or 7 properties. So when I teach them this, I'm going through this and I'm teaching this. So what I'm doing is, when I'm going through that final wave of activity, I'm probably going to be looking at the county records for that property. I'll pull it up on ReallyFlow, for example, and see what ReallyFlow says about it. And obviously ReallyFlow is using the data from the county records. But also, sometimes I'll call another agent in the area. If I see that another agent has helped somebody flip recently, I'll call them up and say, that looked like a pretty good flip. Would you mind telling me what your client did? Because I can see the before price and the after price, and I can see the remarks. You kitchen, you bathroom, you whatever. But I want those details. I want the details, what it was like working in the neighborhood. Did they have a problem with people breaking in and stealing tools and stuff like that? I mean, all these crazy things that happen in this business. So I'm asking those kind of questions. So in any case, that's how I narrow it down. I'll just use my own judgment, look at what the county thinks, look at what ReallyFlow thinks, look at what other people in the area think. And by the way, I will do a final look at MLS and see in that neighborhood where this house is, what's the sale history? And what am I looking for? Sale price versus list price, right? The closer the better. And let's do a quiz here. So I'm looking at sale price compared to list price. But what else am I looking at on that sale of the property? And I'm looking at for other like comps, for example.
Days on
What's
market.
something? Days on market. Amen. Yep. If they're selling pretty quickly because they're remodeled and they're priced right, I know the agent knows what they're doing, but also know the market is rewarding them for it. But if they're taking longer than average days on market, like 3 times as long, that can be a red flag, guys. So in any case, we narrow this down. Now, this is my own rule of thumb, but I've validated this with many other people. It seems to be a general consensus. Is the human mind is really only capable of managing data for up to 6 different properties. If you guys, anybody agree or disagree with that? It's about 6 properties at a time that our brains can handle. You know, you can show them 3, you can show them 7, but to me, it seems like 6 was the average. So we're going to look at 6 properties, and you've got to call and get all these things set up and do it strategically, so you're not jumping all over town. You're doing it like a circuit. I'm sure you all know that. But get them all set up, go through the properties. Now, when we're going through the properties, who's filling out the inspection form? Just shout it out.
I
Me?
have the contractor.
Oh,
The investor.
The investor.
The investor. Yep. So now, if they have the contractor with them, yeah, the contractor can be doing that. But I still want my clients filling out. I want my clients involved as much as humanly possible. Eric was exactly right. Have them fill out the form so they have not just money in the game. They're now personally vested. They're using their eyes, their ears, they're writing with their hands. All this is psychological sources of input to the subconscious mind. If you ever wonder how important that is, I'm telling you, it's extremely important. It's buy-in. They're part of it. Does this make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So have them fill that thing out. And then the contractor would do the one where it's you're doing the rehab analysis one where you're putting in pricing and all that. So in any case, we're going through the properties, we're filling those forms out. I tell them to take pictures. It doesn't make sense for me to take a picture on my phone. It makes more sense for the client to take pictures on their phone. One of the best clients I ever had. It wasn't Joe, by the way. It was another guy named Robert, Bob, called him Bob. He would go through with a video camera and record it while he's walking through it, talking as he's recording, right? Talking as he's recording, going through each room, the basement, the attic, the outside, everything. And then later on at home is when he would fill out his inspection report. That's what he would do. And he was uncannily accurate. The guy never made a mistake. Oh, he was an accountant too. That's probably part of it. But in any case, so let's move along here. Let's say we look at 6 properties, okay? And they all look like they have potential, all right? The key is most investors can't make 6 offers. At best they can make maybe 2, and very rarely 3 at a time. In a lot of cases, one offer. So we got to help them narrow it down. And this is where I get into what I call my tailgate close. Because when I used to do this, personally for me, guys, I drove around a Toyota 4-door, 4-wheel drive pickup truck. And I will lay down the tailgate at the end of the day and with the client, and we lay out all 6 listings that we look at and lay out their inspection forms. We look at the pictures on their phones, and you can do this 1 or 2 ways. The easiest way is to say, okay, there's 6 properties here. Now, I might know that they only can get 1, but the point is, this is the exercise. I would say, if you could do 5 of these, and there was one of them you had to let go, which one would you let go? And I'd let them go through and pick that one. And I'd draw a big red X through it, and I'd pick it up and grab it and ball it up and throw it in a plastic bag. Now, why would I go through all that dramatic exercise to get rid of one? Because it's cathartic. It's not coming back. We got rid of it. It's done. Now we're down to 5. Then we're gonna do the same thing. Okay, let's go through this again. Now I can only do 4, right? Get all the way down to where if you can get them to 1, that's great. If you can only get them to 3 and they just can't make up their mind, then what you do is this. You say, look, I want you to go home with these 3 properties, go through them with a fine-tooth comb, you and your spouse together, look at the pictures, and call me when you're done. And we would set up a time for 9 o'clock or something. Okay. Now, the other approach is what you do is you take 2 properties at a time. So you got six properties, take 2 at a time and compare them and say, okay, of these 2, which one would you want to flip more than the other? If you could only do one. And whichever one they pick, I put it aside. The other one, the one I ball up and throw it away. And then we do that one and another one, or you can do 2 other ones and basically get it down to 3 in a much shorter time frame, and then compare them that way. But at the end of the day, I've already set the expectation. It's called pre-framing. I've already set the expectation before we even went out and looked. When I had them on the Zoom several days earlier, looking at the properties initially and narrowing it down from 60 to 30 to 10 to 5, whatever, I would tell them this preparation is all important because by the end of the day, when we go look at these properties, we need to make an offer at the end of that day to be competitive. We cannot wait. And I set that expectation right up front. So at the end of the day, that day we look at properties. I never ever said, hey, Kate, go take a look at these and you let me know when you're ready. What's most likely going to happen if you take that posture? If you put control in their hands, what happens?
Nothing.
Nothing. A day goes by, a weekend goes by, Monday they're back at work. They're like, it's just a huge waste of time. So I make sure that they have the expectation that we're going to make an offer into that day, and I do. And I mean it. So whatever they end up with, remember they've already been pre-approved, pre-qualified. They're ready to go. I know they've got the money. I write the offer. I tell them I'm going to have this over to you in 5 minutes. I've already got my offers pre-written anyways. I know all the boxes to check. I do go over with them, or at least on the first one, but I make sure that they sign it after they tell me what their offer price is. I already know their address and their contact information. So I tell them to get that back to me with proof of funds, if I don't already have it, and a copy of a hand money check. And I put that offer in that night, and I text the other agent to say, hey, just heads up. I know it's 10 o'clock at night. Don't want to disturb you now if you don't want to be disturbed, but you got an offer sitting in your in basket. Please let me know tomorrow once you've looked at it. We got a 24-hour turnaround on this. So I never gave the listing agent more than 24 hours to get an acceptance or denial from us. And it's not that I'm trying to be pushy or overbearing or bossy. It's because, guys, I know if we did our job right, would you agree we got a really good shot at having a really good flip? Can I get any hand raises on that one? Amen. I'm telling you, it's a business. When you feel, think, speak, and act like a business person, you treat it like a business, you're always going to get better results. And the clients will love you for it. Well, always remember this. They are definitely in control of the final decision. No doubt about it. It's their money. But when you're going through the process, you need to be the bus driver. Okay? You're the driver of the bus, and they're in the front seat looking out, taking pictures and taking notes and all that while you're driving. They trust that you know where you're going and what you're doing. Okay? This is why it's so important to if you're not an investor agent, if you haven't had the training, to get the training. All right? You need to know what you're doing. And I promise you, just like Christian Petroza, just like Kathy here tonight, all Kathy did was went to a local investor club meeting and got an investor, called her up, and he said, hey, I got one I need to put on the market. I just remodeled it. And she took it, put it on there, and sold over the weekend. Guys, that doesn't happen every day like that because she didn't get them on the front end. But I guarantee you now, she's got a good friend. And that guy would definitely be asking her to do this with her and find him his next property. That's a fact. So
We already have stuff going on, Gary.
Isn't that amazing? Yep. So Kathy, when I get back to Virginia, you and I are going out. Okay, we're going to grab a
All
bite to
right.
eat. Yeah. So we're going to celebrate. We'll grab Tom along the way too.
All right.
So, yep. I know for those of you who don't know, this is really unusual, but Kathy and I live literally like 10 minutes away from each other. Most people here are, across the country in different countries, and it is really unusual. It's kind of nice. Hey, Val, you got a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. One more.
Okay.
I suppose I would Google it, but is there an easier way to find a local investor club meeting?
Yeah, RIA is the biggest one, REIA, Real Estate Investors of America.
Uh-huh.
And there is usually a chapter um, in any decent sized town, but also go to meetup.com.
Yeah, that's what I
Meetup.com.
was thinking.
Yep. And then where you are, you're actually in a really good place. You should be able to find a couple investor clubs, So
Awesome.
Hey,
Yep.
hey, Val, sorry to interrupt, but Val, I was doing a search in Gary earlier today at
Mhm.
Gary, Indiana, and
Yeah.
I found plenty of corporate owners, so we
Yay.
can just get their phone numbers and you can call them
Oh, cool. Yeah, we can talk about that and I'll just give them a buzz.
anytime.
Thank you.
Yep.
Both of you.
You're very welcome. Did I ever tell you about the time I was driving from Madison, Wisconsin, back up to London, Ontario, and of course I went down, past Chicago, across the bottom of Lake Michigan, right through Gary, right on I-90, and one of my students was funding a flip there, and I said, "Look, I'm going to be literally like 2 miles from this property. How about if I pull off the highway? I'll take pictures for you," because she was up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I
Yeah.
said, "Look, I'll show you. I just saw Paul McCartney in concert in Madison. That's why I was there. I was coming back from the West Coast, and I said, look, I'm going right by there. I'll take pictures." And she couldn't believe I would do that. I said, well, why not? That's what I love to do. She just,
That's awesome.
she just saw me as, she didn't see me as being a regular person like I am. So in any case, I ended up talking her out of it, quite frankly. But I said, I don't know. I said, I can see that this can be a good flip. I don't know that you should be the source of funds on this one.
Yeah.
And
The
and
inventory over there is almost unattainable. Like for me
Yep.
as one person, right? And when I
Yep.
get back from vacation next week, that is on my list to hit. And I have yellow pads of paper and just pens ready.
Yeah. I'll tell you what's amazing is Gary used to get a really bad rap. I mean, I have to
Oh,
admit, it
yeah.
was not too pretty. I mean, drive like the kind of place you drive through and never tell them, roll up the windows, look, stuff like
That's what my
that. But
mom said.
yeah, but I tell you what, just like any other place in the country, you give it enough love and get a few grants going there, some neighborhood grants, opportunity zone type things. Man, we're seeing miracles out there, and and I wish this stuff would make the news, but it never does.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Charlotte, North Carolina is another great example with the opportunity zone stuff that's going on. And they got pushback too because the people in charge were selecting areas that really weren't the areas that needed the most help. And the local people called them on it. And they started opening up opportunity zones to some of the other areas that really did need gentrification. And then all of a sudden, I mean, a lot of people started making money. Tax rules increased. The neighbors were happy. I mean, this is one of the unwritten rules of why we do this. It's just fun. It's just
Yeah.
fun. I mean, you take a dog with fleas and clean it up and make it shine and show winner, but it's amazing. So
In addition to what you're saying being absolutely applicable to Gary, they have that uniqueness that, pardon my, I don't mean to sound mean, but like it's deteriorated so much that there are dangerous parts, but then there's Miller Beach, which are $1 million homes, and that's in Gary. So if we can make
Yep.
that bridge a little, more suitable,
Yep.
that people would not be like my mom and say, "Oh my God, roll up the windows, hurry up." I think
Yeah.
that'd be great, but one step at a
Yep.
time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all come from different backgrounds and different towns. But I lived in a lot of places, and Baltimore, Maryland was one of them. And when you're a kid, whatever your environment is, you just accept that that's normal. You just assume, well, that's the way it is all over the world. Um, And we were right across the street from Morgan State College. I actually witnessed the riot there in 1970 from my back porch. I was just a kid, you know. But years later, I went back there to see the old house, 1652 Kingsway Road. Don't ask me how I remember that, but I do. Of course, the neighborhood looked way smaller than I remembered as a kid, you know, but it was nice. I mean, people had sandblasted all the brickwork, new windows, new porches with columns. I mean, just an amazing. It just goes to show you, you know, you can make a home out of any place. All it takes is one neighbor to start, you know. And
Yeah.
we've had neighborhoods like in Pittsburgh. We've created a project called turning a neighborhood. So a couple of investors and I, we would get together and buy up as many as we could on a street or a couple of streets, and then we start remodeling and putting the houses back on the market. And then we started calling the city. I actually talked to at the time Luke Ravenstall was the mayor, he was the youngest mayor in the country, and I knew his dad. His dad was a judge. So I asked his dad. I said, "Look, can you get me an audience with your son, Luke, or just tell him what we're doing here? We want to get some city money in there and get some new sidewalks and street lamps." And the judge came by and looked himself. And he couldn't believe it. He called me in his office and says, "Look, I'm going to get you an audience." And sure enough, that took a long time because remember, governments aren't known for moving fast. But we eventually got new sidewalks poured, new streetlights, and you couldn't believe that neighborhood, the same houses, just prettied up. We did about six at first. Then other people started doing theirs. People decided to stay there. They're looking at moving. I mean, it's just amazing. So quite a ramble,
Well, you
guys.
know, I thought of a program like that from the neighborhood I grew up in.
Mhm.
Calumet City, Illinois was perfect. It was the best town ever. I'm second generation. Due to some changes in the city of Chicago, some things became different in Cal City, and everybody ran away and left and went to Northwest Indiana. And we all just loved living in Cal City. And I said to my friend like a month ago, I said, I should start some sort of grants or some sort of program that's like bring Cal City back and make it healthy again, and not try to insult anybody, but there's a lot of lucrative choices there. And I think it's a feel good thing. So I don't know if anybody has suggestions on that. I'd be open to hear them.
Well, anything you do that's community oriented, like you're essentially trying to be sort of an activist, you know.
Yeah.
It can be a challenge because the city, they're busy. They're exceedingly busy. They got so many people approaching them all the time with different things, mostly needs, but everybody wants money. So when you show up with something like that, and it doesn't sound like it's like a crisis, you know, they're so used to dealing with crises. Um, I'm not trying to deter you, but what
No,
I
I
think that,
appreciate the clear view
yeah,
because I'm I'm not sure.
yeah, yeah, we had another project. I'll just tell you real quickly where we just couldn't get anywhere with it. We took the idea from HUD. HUD had used to have a home buyer program, and we would participate. We would take one of our properties instead of flipping it. We would bring the HUD like a tenant in, Section 8 tenant, to um, uh, someone who's already renting from us, for example, that showed an interest, and we would ask them. We'd always, hey, would you be interested in buying a home if I can make it happen? So we got a state grant for the down payment, um, and then we got HUD financing for the loan. But I would make the soon to be owner part of the project. I had he or she meet me there at the property every week, meet the contractors, be part of the design. They got to choose like how they wanted things to go, picking materials and the whole nine yards. Okay. All within a certain budget because HUD would tell me what they were qualified for. So I knew right up front what we're dealing with financially. But they were part of the project. Remember, making somebody part of the project, hands on. You know, I wasn't making them drive nails and stuff. I was just making them be the thought leader, right? Going through the property. At the end, man, they were you can't imagine how happy people are to own their own home, right? After being on Section 8 and you know, with a child, it just people go through hardships you can't imagine sometimes, guys. And that was one of the coolest things I've ever. So I thought let's do it at the city level, you know? And we approached it to them because the HUD prop program started kind of fizzling out. Um, so we approached the city. We kept getting, no, that's not my department. I don't know where you go with that. I'm so busy that they wouldn't return the calls. And finally we got somebody and they were like, look, we've got so many properties. We don't even know what to do with. We just don't have time to be dealing with something like what you're talking about. You'd have to do it all on your own. That's what they told us.
Mm.
And I was a little bit heartbroken, but you never give up. We still did we would always ask our tenants, hey, would you like to be a homeowner sometime? And not all properties, some properties we could do owner financing, things like that. I had an uncle that taught me that. He did owner financing to help people get homes where they wouldn't otherwise be able to get them. And I did a few like that. Then I got into the rentals, and that was all she wrote. It was once I got into rentals, it was all over for me. Hey, guys, I want to show you this real quick. It's called a school report. It's in module 1. Let me do a rotation on it. Here we go. Okay. Let me show you how this is built, and you can determine if you want to do this for your area. So we would take the area fields. 4410 is an area field in Hopewell. 10125 is an area field. That's not a zip code. That's an area field in Butler. 10500 is in Mars. 10790 is in Seneca. We'd use the area field, and we would do 2 columns, active and sold. We would do by price range. Now, this is a little bit dated, but you still have properties out there for 100,000 in certain parts of the country, especially ones that need to be remodeled. So we would do it in 50,000 increments up to 500,000. Then we do 100,000 increments up to $1 million. Then we do $250,000 increment. And we would put in here how many were actively listed at this point in time. We run the report, and how many have sold in the last 30 days. It could be in your area, it could be 60, could be 90 days, whatever that is. Okay. And what we're looking for is, an area that's it's equilibrium and with volume. So when we look at this, like look at let's look at Seneca, the last set of columns, active and sold between 150 and 200,000. You see where the sold is 65 and yet the active is only 28. Now on the surface, that looks like a really good hot neighborhood, and it is. But unfortunately, guys, it's probably a little too hot. In a neighborhood like that, you're going to be competing with homeowners, like people looking to buy homes to live in, not flip. And they're going to outbid you every single time, So you're looking for something like the range right above it. 28 have sold, but 20 are still active from 1 to 150. That's closer to equilibrium. 300 to 350. 24 currently active, 28 sold. See, I would flip in that neighborhood because I know they're coming on and I know they're coming off, right? So the school report, we used to build it manually, but nowadays I don't have what I need tonight to show you this because I'm not on an MLS right now. But an RPR, every one of you has RPR. If you're on an MLS anywhere in the country and you're part of NARS, most of us still are. I know there's brokerages starting to let their agents no longer be part of NAR, and I hope ours does that too, quite frankly. I think you and I, the agents, should own an American Association of Realtors, or whatever you want to call it. You maybe buy the word NAR, but we need to own a Realtors Association, not these other people. Okay, we need to own it, and we need a national MLS. All right, we've been needing it for years. That would solve so many problems, that we own, so that the MLSs and these boards are not selling our data to Realtor.com, to Zillow, to all these other companies. It's ridiculous that we're paying the MLS to put our listings on there and to be part of NAR, and these guys don't have to do that. It's wrong. They'll say, well, it's good for the consumer. I disagree. They're not professional. They're not trained. All they know how is to scrape data and put it on the internet and run some analysis, some algorithms. We're the professionals. We need to have a national MLS that we own and control, and an association of realtors too. That's my preaching moment for tonight. But back to this. Let's look at Butler active and sold, and look at 301 to 350. You have 18 currently active and 5 have sold. Now, see there, I probably would not want to flip there because the property is going to sit on the market too long. Okay. Now, as far as frequency and days on market, you got to run this in your market to determine should you do it weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever your frequency is. So you know the pattern, you know the absorption rate, and if there's an equilibrium, and if not, where is it out of balance? Is it supply higher than demand or demand higher than supply? The closer to equilibrium, the better. And it's good to have a few more sales than you have active, and whatever your time frame is, say 30 days, because that means the market's moving forward and prices are going up. So again, if you don't want to create this manually, instructions are in the module there. You can go to RPR, go to custom reports, and you tell it what you want. I don't know the specific instructions, but I know that's done because I know several people that have done it. And you get the same exact report, and it's done in a matter of seconds, and not taking a couple hours to build it. So, but that's what you're looking for. And you also, once you know that, you need to go to your MLS and do searches on property types and find out which types of properties have the highest volume of sales. So again, if you got 4 bedrooms, 2 bathroom homes selling at twice the rate of 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom homes, you want to go with 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom homes. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. Hey, I feel like I did all the talking tonight, unfortunately, but any questions, comments? Let me stop the share here for a second. I can tell my voice is starting to go. Hang on one second. Actually, raise your hand if this type of discussion helps you? Good. Yeah. Is anybody who here is currently working with investors now? Let's just say flippers. Who here is working with or has worked with flippers in the past? Okay. All right, good. Let's see. Where does Kurt Sutherland? Hey, I know where you are. You've generally had a pretty good market. Is this stuff we went over tonight, does it kind of make sense for your market too? I mean, what do you actually, just tell me, what are you seeing in your market?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Looking for the homes that are selling the best because you find a lot of these kind of odd, or you can find some of these odd homes that the numbers might look good, but they're not going to move. So I think that was really helpful tonight because that confirms kind of what I've been seeing out there too. You can see or there are some homes that just need a lot of work, foundation issues and stuff like that. And you get bogged down with long holding times and stuff like that. And that can kind of become an issue. So,
Yeah. Well, plus with those big projects like foundation issues and roofing, and you're going to have to usually get permits for those things. But if you're just painting and carpeting, you don't need permits for that generally.
Right.
So remember, the easier the project, the smaller the project, the less likely there are to be cost overruns, schedule overruns, and just big surprises. So
I was going to say, I'm working with, on actually a flip for myself with an investor, and we're kind of deciding, do we want to finish off the basement, add another bedroom, or do we want to just leave it 2 bedroom, 1 bath and let the future buyer take care of the lower level? And we're actually concluding that it's better in our case now just to leave it as is, clean it up, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, because the money that you would make by finishing off the basement isn't that much more than just leave it as is. So,
and generally speaking, a basement bedroom, it's not going to garnish as much value on an appraisal. In fact, is the basement a walkout basement, or is it totally
not a walkout? No.
I probably would not do it. I mean, I don't know your area like you do, but
Yep.
two bedrooms are usually not as easy to sell as a 3 bedroom. But a basement bedroom, if it's going to have those real high windows you can't even look out of, like one or two
Oh,
of those.
no, we got lookout windows, so
Oh, okay.
easy to finish off as a basement. And a lot of people where I live here have, friends or relatives that come in and give them a case of beer or a bottle of beer or can, and they'll help you finish off the basement for whatever. So,
That sounds like the good old days,
yeah.
you know? Hey, well, all right. So if I stood up in that in downstairs basement, if I stood up at a window, the window's going to be at least the bottom sill below my chest level, like stomach level.
Yep. Yes. Mhm.
I wonder why they didn't. Would you consider putting in an egress there? Put in an extra a door to the outside?
I don't think it would, you wouldn't get your return out of it. It would be a lot of work. You'd have to dig down
Oh yeah.
You
and
don't have to
retaining
have
walls.
a door egress to make it a bedroom though, but it does have to be a big enough window that an emergency personnel could come in with a full pack and everything else.
Yeah, the windows are big enough. They're full bedroom windows, basement lookout.
Well, you know what? Is it a split level per chance, or is
Yeah.
it just happen to be? Oh
So,
no. Okay, I apologize. I want to take back what I said. I would at least price it out for refinishing, and then if you have an appraiser, just
mhm.
say, or even look at some comps and see if you can find some comps
There's
with
one
some of that.
right next door that is a really good comp that's was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, and
Mhm.
it didn't sell much more than what we could sell it for a
Mm,
2-bedroom, 1-bath. So it's kind of unique, probably.
yeah. Well, I know a lot of places, 2 bedrooms, they're harder to sell because most people, they want that third bedroom, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty hot market though. Anything around 300,000, and that's where we'd be with the 2-bedroom, 1-bath.
Mhm.
Sells just real quick. I mean, next day it would be sold.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Um, okay. Well, guys, I'll tell you what, I'm going to check here for more questions, and then we can wrap this up. I know the NCAA men's basketball finals tonight. And if you really like sports, don't forget the girls' games too. My dad actually he likes watching the girls' games better because they're more
Women is over. Yukon won.
really. Wow.
Yep.
Do you guys
Home team for me.
remember the real estate agent? I'm sorry, the insurance agent we had on the other week? She went to UConn. She was very humble. She was one of the starters all 4 years for UConn when she played.
I didn't know she went to Yukon. That's awesome.
Yep. Um, let's see here. Awesome. Oh, thanks, David. Good to see you too, David. Charlie, thanks, Gary. Awesome session. Gotta go. All right. He's on a cruise. Thanks, Charlie. Sam, schedule. Yeah, go ahead and set up a call, Sam. You still have my number. Just text me or something, email me. You know, glad to help you out. Um, okay, guys. Well, if there's no more questions, I appreciate your participation tonight. I always like to thank the guests for showing up. I've still got here. Let's see, Michelle. Hopefully, I pronounced your name correctly, Michelle Lewis. Um,
Yes, you pronounced it correctly.
oh, nice to see. I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
Good seeing you too.
Yep. Kelly McGowan. Let's see here. Tom all you guys. Good to see you. Kurt, I know you're what do we call you? Well, you're special, I guess. Silver Plus. That's what I was trying to think of. But there was another guy that just must have just logged off and I didn't get to see his name. But all right, well listen, guys, I'll see you next Monday. So next Monday is hang on 1 second. Jim Whiteside, boy, talk about timely. 1031s and trusts. Okay. On the 21st, we've got a big push going on this season for new construction. So a guy named Azil's coming on. He's got developments in Georgia and Florida. He's not really promoting them. I told him he could promote them, but he's really going to show you guys what they need from you, what the builders need from you, the agent, where you can get more listings from builders. Along with what we're doing through Funnel Pilot. Um, For example, we're really pushing hard on new construction. So be there for that one. And then on the 28th is Christian Petroza. Speaking about investor agent. So I met with him in March and I asked him to come teach, just really talk about what he's doing. But he keeps going with the letter campaign and the phone call. He's actually dropped the letter now, just doing the phone call, using Really Flow and just calling these people. He has a VA doing it now for him, and he's already got multiple investors with him. And he says he got a few more. When he gets 10 investors, he's good because they're doing 4 or more properties a year. Some are doing 10 or 12 a year. And that was my story. I just didn't know any different, didn't know any better. I just kept plugging away with that one thing. And man, it really, the rest of is history. So, I mean, look at Kathy. She goes to an investor club meeting, gets an immediate sale, and now has a follow up to do more work with the guy. I mean, investing should always be there for you in your model. And I hope that you can invest yourself one day. That's one of my visions, is to position you to be able to do that. But in addition to that, we always have something else going on. Right now, it's new construction. I wouldn't mess with it. It is what it is. We need housing, and builders know it. And it's up to us to bring in the buyers and connect them with the builders. That's what we do. So take advantage of it, particularly during these next 6 months, and because it'll cool off, once we get through in the like October, November. But just keep going. Set up your one-on-ones with me, guys. Let's keep plugging away. You're in spite of all the news out there and the way the market was last year, you guys are literally, you're out competing most other teams. I know it doesn't feel like it because volume's low, but it's lower everywhere for everybody. And you guys show up every single week, every month, and I appreciate it. So for team members, this Wednesday night, remember we're meeting. That's just for the team members themselves, not guests. But we've got a lot to go over. There's a couple, 1 or 2 nice surprises in there too. I'm gonna fill you in. I'll just give you a hint. It involves Lofty, and we don't know time frames yet, but we're gonna be, as far as I know, we're gonna be paying for it for you. Okay, so me and the guy named Brad Binder, the guy that came in was the lender, so he's looking to grow and expand, and I think this is the idea that's going to help him do that and help us get more deals coming in. You guys get them in whatever area we're in. That whoever's there, you're going to get those deals. So I'll tell you more about that on Wednesday. So make sure you're there, and I'll see you also in the one-on-ones. Sound good, guys?
Yeah. Have a good night.
Okay, you too. Take care. God bless you and your loved ones, and I'll see you Wednesday and next week too.
Thank you for watching this episode of Monday Night Live. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.